Grace and peace and spoiler alert for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Yeah, I watched Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. I'm watching the Star Trek movies in order over the course of the next 40 years, I guess. I get to one maybe every year or two, but I've seen 1, 2, and 3. 2 was the best, 3 was better than 1, and now I watched 4, which I think is probably the second best. I think it's maybe better than 3. I liked it, and my feelings about it aren't that important, except that maybe they are, and we'll get to that. Anyway, I'm the movie pastor. What I do is I watch movies, and I'm a pastor, and so I think about them theologically, and right now I'm in lockdown. We are trying to be safe in the midst of COVID-19, so I'm watching the movies I happen to watch while I stream for them, and I'm trying to be disciplined about that. I'm trying not to go out of my way to watch movies for Movie Pastor. So that's why you've seen my upload rate slow down quite a bit. It's because I can no longer go to the theaters and really escape my troubles, and so I reflect on the movies that I happen to watch. And I watched The Voyage Home. I actually watched a bunch of Star Trek. We've been doing a lot of Star Trek streaming in our long nights at home, my wife and I. But this is the movie pastor, not the TV show pastor, and I don't really know how I would divide, because I haven't seen all of anything. I haven't seen every episode of any single series, and even if I saw all of a series, the other series affect it, and it's a mess. But I did see all of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and so I can reflect a little bit on that. And I think it's an interesting situation in film history that we have this movie, which tried so hard to be so timely, which is a problem, right? I mean, all of science fiction, my belief is that when we're doing science fiction, right, when we're doing horror, we're dealing with people's fears, and so there's some theological merit to that. And when we're dealing with science fiction, we're reflecting today's problems into a kind of less explicit context. So it's a way to talk about what we're experiencing in another world that is safer, therefore, to talk about it. Specifically into a future world. We're doing speculative fiction. Hey, what's this thing we've just invented? It's AI. What if AI kills us all? That's the Terminator series, right? Hey, what's this other thing we've just... Anyway, no need to belabor the point. But Star Trek definitely does that. It deals with issues like race relations, like the Cold War, situations that we are struggling with in our own society. Picard has a lot to do with authority crumbling and what to do when we distrust authority. And then puts it into another setting, another context, a symbolic representation of it, makes them all into aliens, and then we can play with it. We can put it in a laboratory and well, what if it worked this way? Well, what if you think about it in this other, what if I paint it blue and put it in a walrus costume? Then how do you feel about it? And it creates kind of some great discussion, or it can, if it's also enjoyable and if it's also good. Now, Star Trek IV kind of sort of ruined all that, right? Because what they did is they said, okay, yeah, we're from the future. We're going to go back to the past, which is the present of the people watching this movie, and deal with a problem they are having in their present, which I guess for Leonard Nimoy, he thought it was going to be a permanent problem. The Voyage Home, again, spoiler alert, is all about humpback whales and the fact that humpback whales are going extinct. And so by the time of Kirk and Spock's life, humpback whales don't exist anymore. Now that is not actually true. Humpback whale populations have rebounded since the Voyage Home. I don't think because of the Voyage Home, but thanks to efforts to outlaw whaling and other such things, we now don't have this problem of imminent humpback whale extinction. I mean, humpback whale, we could take more of them. Wouldn't be a problem if there were some more of them. We've still got climate change in our oceans and trash islands and all sorts of problems. But humpback whales aren't the most emergent situation that we're dealing with anymore. And so we were going to tell a story about humpback whales with spaceships, but then we got too explicit. And we literally told a story about humpback whales with spaceships. And it didn't seem to work at first. I mean, I was worried about it. I was like, okay, so you're going to go to the present, but the present's the past, and it's my past, and you're going to engage with an idea that's not a live idea for me, and it's going to affect a future. This live idea has affected a future, even though my world doesn't have that problem. There was a lot that could have broken down, and to me, my experience watching it didn't break down. Actually, I think if anything, it aged and got a little better. I think if I were watching it in theaters when it came out, it would have come off as preachy. It would have come off as like too timely, too critical of my world and my time and my place and my problems. And you're asking me to like fix humpback whales in the 20th century, and what am I going to do to fix humpback whales? Like, I'm sorry, Leonard Nimoy, the director of Star Trek: The Voyage Home, but I don't have a solution for you, and I'm not having fun. I came here to watch spaceships blow each other up. I don't know, somebody who watched it in theaters, tell me if that was your perception, but I think I would have felt a little bit of that. And I think if I watched it more in the early 2000s, it would have felt more just dated. It would have felt more like, all right, this is weird. They're going back to the present, but the present is not the present. And the people are talking kind of old-fashioned-y, and they don't have cell phones. And why don't they have cell phones? Even the people in the future. This is just bad and old, and it's an old man movie, and I don't like it. But watching it now, and watching, for instance, Chekhov going into the world of the late 80s, early 90s, and asking about the nuclear vessels, like, I don't care who you are, that's funny. That's because, like, now, sure, you can ask about nuclear subs all day long, and people are like, yeah, it's not going to be a problem. But, like, and if you've got a Russian accent, no one cares. Like, maybe we've got different racism now, right? But I can laugh at the racism of the 80s, 90s now. I think it's early 90s, because, like, I'm no longer hurt by it. It's no longer me. And it's no longer about Kirk and Spock from the far-off Fantasyland future going to the real world or the normal world. It's just the same as when Kirk and Spock time travel and go to the Old West, or they go to the Old West planet, or they go to the medieval planet. Because now we're once again dealing with two different worlds that I'm not a part of. And again, the humpback whale issue becomes not so much an issue for me, not so much like, okay, how do I apply this to my life? I apply it by like saving the humpback whales, and starts to ask more of like, hey, what's the environmental devastation that we're guilty of that could affect our future negatively? What are the ways in which we're being selfish that actually aren't selfish, that actually are self-sabotagingly selfish, right? How do we apply that in 2020? How does that work in the 21st century? Because I see how it worked in the 20th and the 23rd. How does it work in the 21st? And suddenly it's science fiction again. And so it's aged. I think it's actually gotten better with age, but maybe I'm biased because I like it, right? Maybe the fact that it made me laugh enough has caused me to kind of forgive it for some things that it doesn't necessarily deserve to be forgiven about. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Why don't you give me a comment? Because you've all experienced this in different ways than me. You've all seen different amounts of Star Trek, and you've seen Star Trek: The Voyage Home for the first time at different times. Tell me how that kind of worked out. You might want to watch some of these other movies. This one here is my reflection on Tootsie. I just did that one, and it's another movie that deals with how movies age, because I'm seeing, movies that have had some age on them now. Or YouTube thinks you'll like this movie up here. It uses algorithms and figures it out. And then there's this one down here, which is just the most recent one, which, as I'm uploading it, is this one. But since then, I'll have made more movies, and you can watch this one here. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.